Hi there. I'd like to present one closing editorial comment on tonight's show, and one set of observations. With many thanks to the participants, the role players, and everyone who was involved in creating this presentation. There is this potential where you've got an intense layering of problems that are presented during this role play to get a runaway show. It could lead us to see mediation as bedlam, or think that there's a frenzy of challenges that put the mediator in a spot of great struggle and possibly the need to arm wrestle with counsel of the parties. So having done 2,000 mediations in the last 30 years, fortunately, however difficult matters might be, my observation is we don't encounter the kind of impasse that tonight took off from the earth into the realm of the entertaining collage of impasse generating issues that we just witnessed in the form of a recalcitrant and somewhat incensed attorney. So for mediations in real time, we're typically given enough time and the opportunity to connect with fellow human beings on a human level with the benefit of time, so that we don't have to be snagged with impasse. So one closing piece or set of observations. 25 years ago, as Nelson Timken remarked, NYCLA hosted an online, not an online, actually in-person evening program, Impasse Breaking Techniques in Mediation. And I had, at that time, the good fortune of serving as the moderator. I was somewhat, new to the field and was able to bring in great mediators, Margaret Shaw, Leela Love, Roger Dietz, Kathy Roberts. We had a terrific program chair, Amy Rothstein, and each of the mediators presented their, technique for getting past impasse. But since I was the moderator, I got a chance to put in my own 2 cents. And basically, my core point was there's something bigger than any technique that leads to impasse. And what that is something in the character and presence of the mediator, him or herself. And in connection with that point, I drew on a Chinese classic from 2,500 years ago from the Taoist tradition called the Tao Te Ching. And basically, the message is we're all in this world together. We're at this table together, participating in something much bigger than ourselves. And the mediator's ability to communicate this and related messages in words, non-verbally, and beyond that, in the mediator's very way of being, in the vision, in who the mediator is, that has much more impact on enabling parties to engage in a process that builds understanding and deal making than any particular technique, tactic, or move. So thank you, Nelson, for having mentioned the piece, which is in your materials. The full name of it is Technique of No Techniques, a paean to the Tao Te Ching, penultimate word on breaking impasse, or something like that. And it's from a book Molly Clapper did for the State Bar, when we first formed the dispute resolution section. She called it Definitive Creative Impasse Breaking Techniques. So, look, the mediator style is as varied as there are mediators. And in fact, even more so because mediators themselves, do different things and behave in different ways over time. So Steve Hochman, for instance, might love, or prefer a phrase like, let me see what I can get from the other side, because it shows in a caucus, it shows the party you're talking with that you're kind of working for them. And also can avoid reactive devaluation. If it's something that the mediator's doing as opposed to something the other party is pushing. But others might not be so comfortable with that, where the mediator is putting themselves forward as the actor, making himself the star or the agent for the other parties vis-a-vis the others. Similarly, some mediators prefer first names to expressions like sir or counselor, and use those names with the party's permission and respectfully. And this is a way we can humanize. Also, statements that sound like pronouncements or exhortations, however wise, some people might steer away from that, preferring to demonstrate it rather than to sound like you're kind of, the wise person, in a superior status, relative to the other parties. So this technique of no techniques piece that Nelson cites observes that there's like a core message for us in the mediation field, that there's a power in an attitude that puts parties first. In a conflict resolution forum, there's a trust deficit, not only between and among the parties, but also, as we saw tonight, with counsel too. But the mediator can come in and fill that trust deficit with an attitude of trust and send the message, as you look around the table, we're all here, people of goodwill and capacity who can and will address what it is that's brought us here and work it out. So the mediator has this power to communicate really a transcendent realization that there's something greater, bigger than all of us in which we participate. We're embedded in it. And that with time and patience, this greater reality with all of us together is going to open a way for us to be able to work it out. You could look at this in religious terms and talk about it as, the Tao, the great way, or God, or truth, or you could just look at it as reality. But basically, it's that there's a movement towards reconciliation and peace. In pragmatic or psychological or sociological terms, it's just the realization that discord just hurts too much. Resolution feels better. And also things like the cost of litigation, disruption, uncertainty, the need to move on, and more, these things combine to generate resolutions. And I'll say, based on my observations, mediations, all kinds of shapes and sizes, personalities, interpersonal and financial challenges, it seems to be valid. Having a deep calm with a basis in silence, in deep listening, the cultivation of an awareness of what's happening within oneself and in others, and a continuous relatedness coupled with deep flexibility. So you're not confronting, you're not preaching, you're not making pronouncements, but you're recognizing the humanity of all the players at the table and outside the room. You're being genuine and in fact normal, and preserving this quality of deep listening, this way of being and living, with oneself and others in the world, opens a field for everybody, all the participants, to grow together and understand. So with this, we can bypass many of the snags that were acted out in tonight's program. One by one, the mediator can catch that moment of escalation before eruption and apply the appropriate salve or fix. Sometimes it's with listening, sometimes it's with acknowledgement, sometimes it's addressing, sometimes it's looking past to something else, demurring essentially, and reorienting the talk into a productive zone. So close with this message, really to ensure that the high level of entertainment with the smorgasbord of challenges presented in this really delightful role play doesn't leave the viewer with the impression that mediation is a place of radical conflict and wild abandon. Hope you've enjoyed the show and that you're going to find after tonight's slugfest that you've been given a ton of challenges that give you a year's worth of rumination. So thank you, Elan, for this in particular, and thank you, Nelson, for braving that assault so unflappably.